I'll explain it in just a second. Thank you. I will take it, because it's been a long time since I've been one of those. Good morning. How are y'all this morning? Thank you so much for braving the Winter Watch 2013. No, I'm kidding. They always make such a huge deal of it. Now I say that and I'll be sleeping here tonight, But welcome to the Breadbeckers. I recognize most of you. For anybody, is this your first class ever at the Breadbeckers? Okay, good. Good. We'll have lots of fun then. Not that we wouldn't if this was your first time, but, I thought I recognized everybody. Couple of things. Wanted to make sure, did everyone get a copy of the handout when you came in? Did you check in at the front desk? All right. Make sure everybody gets a handout. This is going to be a little bit different. I mean, I'm hoping that this is going to be a little more laid back, because I think that hosting parties and party foods, it should be laid back, because if it's not laid back, you're not going to have any fun, especially if you're the hostess and everyone is coming over to your house. But a couple of things. I want to first go over what you're eating at your table. And this was a last minute thought that I had last night, was to make these little trays for you to be able to enjoy at your table throughout the class. I've got 2 different types of dip. Jim, I'm going to come down front really quick. I'm just letting you know. Okay. This line of dip mixes is made by To Market is the name of the company that makes these for us. You will see them referenced in this handout a good bit, because I'm using them for all different kinds of stuff today. These are just fantastic. If you've not tried these, they're wonderful, not only for dips, and they've got the recipes on the back for either a hot dip or cold dip or a spread. I think the dips that you have on your table would be wonderful as a spread on a panini or a grilled sandwich, or even in place of just plain mayonnaise on a turkey and cheese sandwich or roast beef or whatever. What's great about these dip mixes is there's no MSG. I think only the Thrill of a Dill has salt in it, but the rest of them have no salt, which is nice, because if you're trying to watch the type of sodium or salt that you're eating, you can use the real salt that's good for you, to be able to salt your meats and things like that. Because these are also great not only for dips but for marinades as well, to rub on steak or to rub on chicken, and things like that. We use them for just about everything. There's one out there, I'm not using it today, but I did want to draw your attention to it. It's called Jack and the Bean dip is the name of it. That is what I use in place of taco seasoning and fajita seasoning and things like that. My daughter Catherine has a milk allergy, and most taco seasonings have whey powder. It's a thickening agent, and she can't have any of those. So the Jack and the Bean dip is wonderful in place of my fajita seasoning and taco seasonings for things like that. But the 2 that you have are on the table are 2 of my favorites. They are the Popeyes Passion and the Garlic of Eaton. You'll be able to tell the Popeyes Passion is more the orangey one that's got the green chunks in it. That's spinach. It's dehydrated spinach. What's great about these dip mixes is hey, how are you? They are just dehydrated vegetables and herbs. That's it. That's all that's in these. So the Popeyes Passion is obviously a little bit more, it's going to be a more spinach dip theme. The Garlic of Eaton is, it's just got a lot of garlic in it. These are great to add to soups, to rice, to mashed potatoes. The Garlic of Eaton, a couple tablespoons of this when you're cooking your potatoes, if you're using a pressure cooker to cook your potatoes, because then you're not waterlogging your potatoes. If you are just doing a traditional method of cooking mashed potatoes where you're covering it with water and boiling it, then I would add a couple tablespoons of the Garlic of Eaton after you've started mashing them and you're mixing in your butter or your sour cream and your cheese or whatever you like to put in your potatoes. But those are great. Let's see. I think there's one. It might be. Oh, It's About Time is mostly thyme and basil and oregano and those types of seasonings. That is wonderful also in mashed potatoes. I also like to add that to my meatloaf mixture. It's About Time. My mom's standard meatloaf recipe that we grew up was a pound or two of ground beef, and a packet of the Knorr Farm French onion soup. So the It's About Time is very, very close to that, because it's got some dehydrated onions and garlic and then all the herbs and everything. So definitely take a look at all of those dip mixes, and don't just think dip, because there are so many things that you can do with it. The Thrill of a Dill, I like to mix with a little bit of softened butter, and I smear that on my salmon before we bake it or grill it or smoke it or whatever we're going to do with it, and it just adds a really nice flavor. So which one do I like for chicken? I like the garlic of Eaton. I like the roasted red pepper spread. It's a roasted red pepper. It's got a kick to it. But I like that for chicken a lot. The pesto and possibilities, that one's got some of the same flavors of the roasted red, but not quite as spicy. So you might, if you don't like spicy things, you might try the pesto and possibilities if you were gonna rub it on chicken before you grill it or something like that. Okay? The Jack and the Bean is really good if you're gonna grill your chicken for fajitas. Go ahead and rub it down with the Jack and the Bean. It's fantastic. Okay, so the two dips that you have in front of you are the Popeye's Passion and the garlic of Eaton. I've also given you just some fresh veggies to try with it. And then also the little croutons that we made for you, that was just leftover bread. We had been testing out some bread recipes and some bread machines this past week. And so we had leftover bread. And so I just sliced it, cut it down the middle. I think it was the Zoharushi loaves. So they were about this big. I cut each slice into eighths, basted it with just a little olive oil, and put it in the dehydrator for a few hours is all it took. So there is absolutely no reason to be buying crackers for a party, for dip and things like that, when you can just use, and this is also a great way if your bread it's several days old and nobody wants to slice it for sandwiches anymore, go ahead and cut it up and dehydrate it and then put it in a Ziploc bag, and then you have it, and that way none of it's going to waste. Another trick that I do with leftover bread is go ahead and throw it in my food processor and blend it up into breadcrumbs, throw it in a Ziploc bag and throw it in the freezer, and then I have breadcrumbs whenever I need it, and I'm not using fresh bread. There's lots of things that you can do with stale bread, French toast, all those good stuff too. But this is a great way, and as long as you have these on hand, my kids will eat these. As long as I have them, they won't ask for chips or crackers or anything like that. Of course, you could totally doctor those croutons up with some of our garlic salt or the seasoning salt or onion salt. You could really do a lot to them to add some more flavors to them. So that's what you have in front of you. So now we are going to pray and get started. Did everybody have a handout now? All right. Thank you for whoever brought me water, because I'm going to need it. All right, let's go ahead and pray, because I think everybody's here now. Dear Father, thank you so much for this time that we get to spend together, just enjoying food and company and fellowship and just having fun together, Lord. And I just pray that you would be with me as I teach this class, that I would be an encouragement to these people that are here today, that they would know that they can go home, and that hosting a party is not about showing off what we can do or what we have, but it's about being a blessing to other people. And the only way that we can be a blessing to other people is if we are with them. And if we're spending all of our time in the kitchen cooking and preparing and not with the people that we've invited into our home, how can we really be a blessing to them, Lord? So I just pray that you would help me to show these ladies how to make easy food, good food, fun food, that they can give to their friends and family and be able to enjoy the time and the fellowship that they have together with their friends and their family, enjoying this good food. Help us to drive safely as we leave here today, Lord. Protect each one as they make it back home. Be with all of our children if they are in school right now, and just keep all of us safe the rest of the day. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, so my thought with this class obviously was that we're still a week and a half away, thereabouts, from the Super Bowl. Of course, all Atlanta residents were planning on the Falcons being in the Super Bowl. So my plan was to wear a Falcons jersey, but that didn't happen. My Broncos aren't even in it. I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan. They're not even in the Super Bowl. So with the mega trade that went down with the Braves yesterday, I'm just believing that we're going to the World Series this season, and so we're rocking the Braves jersey today. So my kids were funny. I was talking to my sister Abby. She's here today helping. I was talking to her on the way here, and I was like, I need you to help me. My sister Abby's a hairdresser. I said, when I get to work, I need you to pull my hair back so that it is out of my face and out of the way. And she said, okay, no problem. I get off the phone. We're on the way to school. My son, my 7-year-old, he goes, why were you talking to Aunt Abby? And I said, well, she's going to do my hair for the class. And he said, well, what is she going to do? And I said, well, she's going to braid it so that it's out of the way. And he goes, will you take a picture of it? And I said, why? And he said, so I can see it. And I said, well, when I pick you up from school, it'll still be the same way, so you'll see it. And he goes, oh, good. He goes, I bet it's going to make you look young. I was like, major brownie points for the 7-year-old. Major brownie points. So anyway, I'm going to get a drink of water really quick. It's not what I was going for, but if it happens, it works, because it's been a long time since I've been young. Okay, I know that's relative. I know y'all. I hear y'all laughing at me. Okay, flip to the very back of your handout, because I want to tell you 2 things. I want to tell you what you had to drink this morning. Hopefully you've gotten something to drink. If not, our drink table is set up over here. I wanted to the iced sweet herbal tea. I wanted to make sure, because a lot of times these classes we'll have customers that are either watching online at home, or once we archive this video, it may be the first one that they've ever seen. So I know this might be a little redundant for you guys, but these are our Ingenue teapots from Adagio. You put your loose herbal tea in the top here. You pour your boiling water over it. You let it steep for however long the different types of teas need to steep for different amounts of time. And then once you are done, you take it off its tray and you hold it over your pitcher or whatever container you're putting it into. This is weighted. I don't know, can y'all hear that? It's weighted, so when I set it down on the pitcher, all of the brewed tea, drains out the bottom and into my pitcher. Now, its design is for personal mugs of hot tea. That's what it's designed for. But I love making a super concentrated amount of brewed tea here, dispensing it into my half-gallon pitchers. I sweeten it and then stir it, fill it with ice, cold water, and you have your iced teas. And so this morning I made for you 2 herbal teas that are my favorite, my kids' favorite. It's very kid-friendly, so I love having this available at parties where kids are going to be there. I find they don't miss the sodas and those sorts of things if I have these. So the 2 I made for you today, I made the wild strawberry and the dewy cherry. Those 2 are by far my favorites. Blood orange is also very, very good. We've got several that are very fruity, berry, things like that. Herbal teas are naturally decaffeinated because they are just dehydrated flowers and fruits typically. There's no tea actually in them at all. So those 2 teas are there for you. And then the coffee punch recipe. This is probably my go-to punch, other than the real fruity punch that Mom does in all of the Christmas classes and things like that. Other than that, this is my go-to punch for baby showers, wedding showers, any kind of party. Any excuse that I have to make the coffee punch, and any excuse that my my sisters are always like, are you making the coffee punch? I'm like, yes, I'm making the coffee punch. So the coffee punch recipe is there. I did use our organic hazelnut whole bean coffee. I ground it fresh, made the coffee yesterday. What's great about both of these drinks, the herbal teas, obviously you can make them days in advance. The coffee punch, you can make the brewed coffee, the honey granules, or agave nectar, either one to sweeten it, and the milk. You can make that up ahead of time and keep it in the refrigerator for up to a week. I've had it in there up to a week, and then when you get to the party or the day of the party, you just put it in your punch bowl or your dispenser, and then you add the chocolate ice cream to it and stir it up, and that's it. And then of course it's totally optional to add the whipping cream if you want to, but I mean, if you're having coffee ice cream, you might as well add whipped cream to it. So that's just my personal opinion. So those are the 2 drinks that you had. So I at least wanted to tell you what you were drinking. You guys know that you can get up and down as much as you want during the class and get something to drink, go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to do, and you're not going to bother me. Yes, ma'am. I just used I think it was Horizons organic whole milk is what I used, but you can use whatever. I mean, you could certainly do soy milk, rice milk, almond milk, coconut milk. You could do any of those milks just fine. So whatever kind of milk you're used to, drinking, you can use that. All right. We are going to get started because we need to get these chicken wings smoking. All right. This is our Jacquard Home and Away portable cooking stove. I'm going to turn it around so that you guys can see it. And then this is our Cameron stovetop smoker. It's got several parts in here. We are going to use, let's see. I thought that I had gotten my wood chips out, but I guess I didn't. Hey, Karen. Will you come help me? Because I'm not tall enough. I think it's the one behind the post there that I want. I don't know which one that is. Yes. Okay. I'm going to use apple wood chips today. This is our Cameron smoker. This is our line of wood chips that Cameron makes to go with their smoker. The great thing about these wood chips is that all it is ground up wood. There's no chemicals. There's no flavor enhancers or anything like that. So these apple wood chips is from an apple tree that they ground up, and that is it. I like the sweetness that the apple wood chips add. This is probably one of my favorites when I smoke breakfast sausage, like the turkey sausage links. My kids love those, and I will use the apple wood chips when I smoke those. Then, okay, so you put your wood chips right down in the middle of the pan here. No liquid added there or anything like that. All right, and then this is your drip pan. Now, what you can do is you can add liquid here if you want to give a steaming and a smoking effect to whatever meat or whatever food you've got in here. Where I like to do that, there again, is sometimes when I do barbecue chicken or my breakfast sausage links, I will put apple cider in here. You could sprinkle some dried cranberries in there just to add that nice flavor to it. And that's it, okay? Now I've got my, as my kids call them, chicken wings are split up into two different categories, according to my kids. They are split up into one bone and two bone. Those are how you classify a chicken wing, in their opinion. It's either one or the other. So I got, of course, all of the one bone chicken wings because I think that they're a little more meaty. We're just gonna do a little bit of olive oil and a little salt. Now, this is if you wanted like a buffalo style hot wing, I would use the Some Like It Hot dip mix that To Market makes. And at this point, I would grind that up, that dip mix up in like your Tri-Best or your, some type of personal small blender. And I would then sprinkle it over this. Anytime I do a marinade, I typically like to grind up the seasoning mix in my little personal blender so that I don't have all those chunky pieces of dehydrated vegetable. It's all powdered and smooth, so it really coats really well. Those seasoning packs that you can get at the grocery store. I know Kroger makes their own brand, but I think McCormick, the Grill Mates, those types of things. Typically those are about between 3 and 4 tablespoons of seasoning mix, and you add it in with a 1/4 cup of water and a 1/4 cup of olive oil is typically the standard mixture if you're going to make a marinade for meats. So I just use that same ratio if I was going to marinate a steak or marinate chicken or something like that. All right. There is that. Yum. Absolutely, ask away. Yes. I have several options at home. I mean, you can't be a breadbaker and not have several options at home. But this was the first one that I started off with. I love it because it is on the stove. I can do it on the stove top in my house. It's great for small batches of things. Now I have the big smoker if I want to do like racks of ribs or a big turkey for a large gathering. You can use this for big amounts, and I thought that I was going to have to actually, because I didn't know how full it was going to make this. Let me go ahead and get this going. It's all backwards to me. Okay, we're just going to get this on high, and we're going to position those wood chips, the flame right under them. Okay, that's what you're going to do. If I had wanted to do a whole chicken, I certainly could. Now, obviously, the lid wouldn't slide on, but you could just tint it with aluminum foil, and it works just fine. You can do this on your grill. You can do it over an open flame, so it's great to take camping or something like that. So, you know, if you didn't have electricity. Now, if you ever were out of power, this is probably one of the coolest things to have because it uses a small little butane tank is what it uses. We're going to force this down in here. All right, what you're going to do is you're going to put the lid on and leave it crack just a little bit, because what you're going to watch for is you're going to watch for smoke to start wisping out of that corner. And when it does, that's when you close the lid, you turn your heat down to a medium high, and you would start your timer for your cooking, okay? I am going to totally guesstimate on these chicken wings that we're probably looking at, because it's so full, a good 25 minutes is what I'm going to set the timer for. And do you see it coming out? So you're just going to close that down tight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn this off so that I can move it. You gas stove or electric. Now you're just going to have to look at your personal stove, like the glass tops. I know some of them say not to put things that hang over the burner, so you're just going to have to watch that and see what yours says. All right, I'm going to set the timer for those. I personally do have a glass stove, and mine says that it says that if you hang things over the burner, that it can discolor the top. That personally does not matter to me. I use my stove so much, it's already discolored around the edges of my burners. My new one, my husband and I just moved into, we finished building our house this past summer, and we got a new stove for the new house, and it's actually a black glass top, so you can't tell if things are discolored at all. So I use mine, but it's something that you'll just have to look at your owner's manual to your oven and see if that'll work. But gas ovens, electric, you know, the coils, all those work just fine. Okay, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit more. Know that it does put out smoke in your kitchen, so you may need to disable a smoke detector or something. And it will smell up your kitchen and your house. The next morning you'll be like, oh yes, I remember. Whew, those chicken wings we had yesterday, that was good, you know. So it does linger. The pan itself does get very dark the more you use it. My parents overheard someone asking the rep from Cameron, you know, what do you do about this discoloration? And he said, nothing, that means you're using it, and that's a good thing. So it's never going to be gorgeous clean like it was when you bought it, you know, but that's all right. That means that you're using it. So one thing I want to show you that I made for you, underneath that, the chicken wing recipe is a mock ranch dressing or dip. And this actually used the to market It's Greek to Me seasoning mix is the one that I used. So I'm actually going to give this to Karen, and when our wings are done, they're going to serve the and let me back up. When these finish smoking, they're not crispy. like they've been, in the broiler or on the grill. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to throw them all into a baking dish. I'm going to slather our barbecue sauce on them, and I'm going to pop them in the oven just for 5-10 minutes, just to make the barbecue sauce sticky on them. Okay, we're doing this portion, just to get that smoke flavor in there and cook them. So they're going to serve the finished chicken wings when they're all done with a little dollop of the ranch dressing on the side, so that you can taste that. I think it's pretty darn close to real ranch dressing. And what's really cool is I did use the mayonnaise, and then I used yogurt instead of sour cream or something like that. Also, I did want to tell you, with the dip mixes you had this morning, it was a mixture of sour cream and mayonnaise. Well, I took my plain yogurt and I drained it in my yogurt cheese maker to make my own sour cream. Drain that way off. It makes a thicker, more sour cream-like consistency out of the plain yogurt. And then, I don't think I have one in there anymore. And then I use that in place of the sour cream. So you're getting plain yogurt, live active culture yogurt in the dip that you're eating. So that's pretty incredible too, that gives you just one more way to get those good probiotics into your system by using that drained yogurt instead of sour cream. So here's the ranch. Okay. The next two recipes that we're going to make actually require some bread. Now, anyone who has come to any of my cooking classes in the past know how much I absolutely love my Zoharushi bread machine. I use it all the time. Let me get my cutting board here. Let's see. No, I did not. No, I did not. It was funny because I actually said something to my mom over Christmas, about how we were just talking about bread troubleshooting and things like that. And I said, yeah, I'd really like one of the newer models, but mine's still working. And she's like, wait a minute, what do you mean? And I said, well, yeah, I still have my one that's like 13 years old. And she's like, you do? And I was like, yes. I said, I've been hinting in all of the classes, maybe if you were around for them, you would know that I wanted a new one for Christmas. She just started laughing. So maybe for my birthday. We'll see. We will see. All right, what I'm going to make for you now. But then I like the fact that I can tell people that mine is 13 and a half years old and still working great. I think that's a fantastic testimony to the machine. But for those of you who haven't been to some of my previous classes to know just how much I love my Zoharushi, one of the reasons why I love it is not only for the homemade cycle that you can pre-program all of your different stages that the dough goes through, but I have now what you will be able to do with your newer models that I cannot do. The newer models have 3 different homemade cycles so that you can program each cycle for something else. I encourage people to program that memory 1 homemade cycle for your fully baked loaf of bread and make memory 2 your dough cycle. That all you have turned on is the knead for 20 minutes. So in 20 minutes you can have dough and you're ready to do whatever you want with it. The other great function of this machine is the timer feature. And I use that timer feature along with my memory 2 dough cycle so that I have dough ready for me when I want it. And that's what I did this morning. I walked in at 8:30. I threw all my ingredients in the bread machine, but I put it on memory 2, which was my 20-minute knead, and I set the timer so that the dough was done at 11 o'clock. And I didn't have to think anything more about it. And that's what I did. And so this morning I'm going to make, this is my version of little sliders, and I just take the dough out. Biggest thing you want to remember when you're making rolls like this, and it's kind of the same with biscuits, you want it to rise double in size. So start with a thickness that's about half of what you want it to end up like. That's the biggest thing to remember when you're rolling it out. Obviously, if you roll it out too thin, Well, it's not going to be a very thick bun or slider or dinner roll. Okay, these are our nesting cookie cutters that I love. This would be like a jumbo hamburger. It's got all these different sizes. I like kind of this middle one when I'm making sliders. If you need help rolling it out, the pastry roller does a great job. I usually, when I'm trying to even it out so that it's not thicker on one side, but I don't want it to thin out anymore, I will hold the shape here as I go around, and that just helps me to not get too thin at the edges. Okay? Dip it in a little bit of flour, and away you go. I used 2 parts hard red, 1 part hard white. Just the basic dough recipe. Now, let me tell you my other trick. And if you've come to any of my bread classes, you know that I'm a rebel. And I do not make my bread the same way that my mom makes her bread. And you don't have to make your bread the same way that I make my bread. That's okay. Now, this is what I'll tell you, the trick to reshaping this, because now that I've handled this a lot, it's not going to want to roll out very much for me. So I will go ahead and pull it all up, shape it kind of back into a ball, set it aside for just a few minutes while I get these onto a pan. Okay, so let it just sit there. Now, the other trick to these is put them, if you spread them out, they're going to spread out as well, and they're not going to go up. So if you do them close to each other, that'll force them to rise up instead of out. Same with biscuits. If you do sides touching, it forces biscuits to go up and not out. How many do we have in this class, Karen? 23? Okay, because I want to make sure that I have enough, that everybody gets their own sandwich. These are going to be for our sloppy joes, our lentil sloppy joes. Yes, I know. I always try to take care of y'all. If you came, this is the basic dough recipe. That's all this is. But this is how I make my sliders. Okay? There is another way, though, that I want to show you. And I want to show you this too. Ice cream scoop, cookie scoop. Obviously, you guys know them. Ice cream scoop and cookie scoop. Standard muffin, mini muffin. Does a great job. 8 to 10 inch tortilla, smaller tortilla. Use them to scoop your bread dough with. They work great. So, let's say this was in a bowl, okay? Y'all can imagine it with me, okay? And then just flatten it. Okay? So you could certainly scoop out all of them, and then once you get them on your pan, flatten them down so that they're all flattened, and then let them rise. Okay? That'll work too. If you come to my soup class next week, you'll see my new little half-baked dinner rolls that then you can take out of the freezer up to 2 weeks later, frozen, pop them in the oven and have them ready in 7 minutes. Have hot bread. That's going to be on Wednesday next week. I believe that's the 30th, January 30th. You have a pizza question. Go for it. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Okay, pizza dough, which basic recipe were you using? The basic bread dough recipe from our cookbook is 2 teaspoons of salt. Well, the basic dough recipe in the front of the cookbook is 2 teaspoons of salt. Uh-huh. Yeah. If I was going to use it for pizza dough, see, I like a sweet dough. I would just do the basic dough exactly like you were going to make a loaf of bread and then just take it out and make pizza crust. That's what I do. Now, Mom doesn't care for the sweetness that way, and so she does cut the honey in half, but all the other all the other measurements are the same to the ingredients. I did want to tell you, because talking about the salt and how much salt you use made me think of this. This is another one of my tricks, especially for parties. If I'm making these the day of, this is the basic dough recipe, 2 parts red, 1 part white. But instead of the 1 tablespoon of yeast, I use 2. There is nothing wrong with that. It's not going to make your bread taste funny. What it is going to do is it's going to make it rise faster. And I am all about faster, because I have other things that I need to be doing. So these will rise very quickly, especially because I've got my oven preheated to 170 degrees. That is typically what the lowest temperature on an oven is, unless it's like a gas oven or something like that. The lowest temperature is typically 170 degrees. So I will go ahead and I will preheat my oven to 170. I will shape my dough and make it into whatever it is I'm making, and then I will pop it into the oven, turn the oven off so it doesn't start slowly baking, set my timer for 15-20 minutes. Usually in that amount of time, it's doubled in size, it's risen to double in size, and it's ready to bake. So that's just another trick. I'm going to put all of this bread dough in there to proof and rise together. So I want to talk to you about what this is. So flip 1 page over to the basic dough rye variation. Okay, that's what this is. This is the basic dough recipe that I actually converted into a black rye bread recipe. Okay, why try and find a black rye bread recipe when I know I like the basic dough recipe? I don't want to change it too much. I like the texture, I like the consistency. So what I've done here is, instead of, and you'll notice if you make that basic dough recipe a lot, you'll notice that the 1.5 cups of water called for in the basic dough recipe, in this variation, it's a cup of hot water and 1/2 cup of coffee. That gives it a very rich flavor, okay? The oil and the honey are the same. The egg and the salt, the rice bran, the gluten, those are all the same, okay? But instead of the 4.5 cups of freshly ground wheat flour, whether it be hard red, hard white, kamut, spelt, whatever grain you're typically using, I did 1 cup of rye flour, 3 cups of hard white, and 1/2 cup of cocoa. Okay, and that is what gives it the dark black color, is the cocoa. Okay, so now what I've done is I've taken this and and the caraway seeds. Can't forget the caraway seeds, because that's what gives it the rye flavor. Y'all know that rye doesn't actually have a flavor. Rye bread, the only reason why it tastes that way is the caraway seeds that are in it. So rice bran extract is going to be the soy lecithin substitute. We're no longer carrying the soy lecithin, so the rice bran is going to be your substitute. I went ahead and made the change in this recipe. Your basic dough recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of soy lecithin, and it's optional. If you use the rice bran extract, you want to cut that amount in half. The rice bran extract is a little more potent than soy lecithin, and so you use half as much. So I went ahead and made that adjustment for you when I typed up this recipe. Yes, ma'am. You do not have to use the rice bran extract. It's completely optional if you don't want to use it. All right, so what I've done is I've taken my basic dough rye variation. I split it into 3 equal portions. Now I'm just going to lay these on my baguette pan, because we're going to let these rise, bake them, slice them into rounds, and then I'm going to serve a Reuben salad on top of them as soon as they're done, okay? So I'm going to pop these in to rise along with our sliders. Let's see, we're going to turn the lower oven off. And we're going to let these go for 15 minutes and then see how they look. Okay, wash my hands, and then we are going to make the lentil sloppy joes. So if y'all want to go back to that recipe, I knew we needed to, sorry to jump around, but I knew we needed to get that bread rising so that it's ready when everything else is. Were any of you here for the Christmas class? And I will get to your question in just a second. Do y'all remember the lentil sloppy joes? I don't, because there wasn't enough left for the employees to have any when it was all said and done. So so today there will be. I'm having some of the lentil sloppy joes. What was your question? You could certainly, her question was the flaxseed that's in the basic dough recipe, which is optional. It's optional in the basic dough recipe. And I don't typically add it to my bread. And so, especially for this purpose, I didn't use it. But you could. You certainly could if you wanted to. You could add freshly ground flax. Yes. The croutons, how did I make the croutons again? I just sliced my leftover bread and I cubed it like that, basted it with a little bit of olive oil dipping sauce, and then dehydrated it. That's it. And a couple hours. And the temperature I did it on was just high. But it was just until it's done. Yes, ma'am. I believe that you can. Yeah, I mean, you're basically just drying it out. So yeah, absolutely, you could do it in an oven if you wanted to. Okay. If you make the basic dough recipe and you use the 2 tablespoons of, well, if you're using the soy lecithin, it would be 2 tablespoons. With the rice bran extract, you might just taste it. It has a very strong flavor, and so you might just taste it if you ended up using the full amount. Yeah, I mean, if you can't taste it, then go for it. They would taste it. Especially if you did it side by side. They would be able to tell. This is different if you made one with 2 tablespoons and one with just 1. All right. Oh, thank you. Actually, they can just stay on that table right over there because I don't need them. Thank you. All right, so we are going to do the lentil sloppy joes. And this could be interesting because Mom did this recipe in the Christmas class and I didn't. So I'll be making it for the first time right along with you guys. But that's all right. It's funny, growing up, and I'm sure you guys have heard Mom talk about, it helps to plug it in, doesn't it? Yes. I'm sure y'all have heard Mom talk about how small our house is. And especially, any house gets even smaller when you have 7 children. It just is. And then of course in the beginning, we had the business. We had the Breadbeckers out of our home. We had the business in the house until 98 is when we finally moved out of the house. So for 6 years, we had cooking classes in our house. We had customers coming at all hours of the day and into the evening. It was always very humorous to see on family movie night, Mom rush for her bedroom because she was in her pajamas because a customer would pull up and be needing honey or wheat or something like that. So, yeah, it was great times. But we were always having people over, not just because of the business and things like that, but Mom has always enjoyed having people over and entertaining, and I don't even like using that word, to be honest with you, entertaining people, because it's not about that. It's about the fellowship and it's about spending time with each other and stuff like that. So I don't like that word, entertaining. I like hospitality a lot better, and being hospitable to people. And she definitely, I think, instilled in the rest of us, my sister Abby, my sister Lydia, um, Olivia being the baby is too busy being the baby in the family. And she's only 16, so she's not out on her own, so she doesn't host anyone, yet. But the rest of us all having our own homes, we do enjoy having people over. I love having people over to our house. I like cooking for people, but I like spending time with them. I don't like being stuck in the kitchen while everybody else is enjoying spending time with each other. And so I do try to pick out things. If I'm hosting a party, I try to pick out foods that I can prepare ahead of time, and then just throw it all together and put it out and have it be family style or buffet style or whatever. And, my house is your house. Make yourself at home. Get your own drink. Glasses are there. Plates are there. It doesn't all have to be so structured that it takes all of the fun and the enjoyment out of it. So, we were always reading stories too in the Bible growing up about, there were so many stories of hospitality, of different widows and families inviting the prophets in, and Elijah and Elisha, because they were traveling all the time around, and they would have different places that they would stop, and they would become friends with these people. You had the lady who built the room, in her home for either Elijah or Elisha. I can never remember which one is which. Those poor guys. They're probably like, I came first. No, I came first. And I think the trick is J comes before S, and so it's Elijah came before Elisha. That's how I remember. But I still don't always know which story goes with which one, because they were both so cool. So, but we've got our olive oil in our medium saucepan, which I'm using a pressure cooker here. This is part of the Quattro set that we carry. This is the smaller pot to the Quattro set, because instead of doing a traditional cook on these vegetables and the lentils, which you'll see would take 35 to 40 minutes, I'm going to put it all in the pressure cooker and cook it for only 10. So that's going to cut way down on your time. And if I know, since this is none of y'all's first time coming to our cooking classes, you know how much we love our pressure cookers. But I've got our onions and our carrots and our bell peppers and a little bit of olive oil in there. Oh, and I was supposed to be having my ketchup in here too. 2 tablespoons, carefully measured. See, I get my measuring from my mom too. Karen, will you just come check I did not pay attention. Our burner went out. I wonder at what point it went out. I bet the tank ran out. Will you check those for me, though? That is the downside to those little portable burners, is that the little tank, butane tank, it ran out, and at some point, my flame went out. So we'll check those if we have to keep cooking them. It's no big deal. This is the smaller Quattro set pan. So this is a 2.5, and this is actually it down on the table. I set it out for you. It's a 2.5 brazier and a 6-liter stock pot. That's what comes with the smaller set. What's really cool is Fissler, when they came out with this new VitaQuick line, they made a larger Quattro set as well. And so the 2 pots that come with the larger set are a 4.5-liter brazier, which I believe is this one. This is the 4. It's either a 4 or a 4.5-liter brazier and an 8-liter stock pot. So it's a bigger set. So if you have a bigger family, this may be a great starting point for you as far as pressure cookers go. What's nice about it is it comes with the 2 pots that you see down there. The pressure lid that it comes with fits both pots because they're the same diameter pot. So it fits both pots, and then it also comes with a glass lid so that when you get finished cooking one dish, put the glass lid on it, move your pressure lid over to the other pot, and pressure cook the other dish or side dish or meat or whatever you're cooking for your meal. So it's a great little starter set. Okay? All right, so there we've got our vegetables. And then now we're going to add the lentils. And I will just tell you, I am doubling this recipe just to make sure that we have enough. I know a single recipe would be plenty for you guys, so I'm making sure that we have enough for all of us to enjoy it as well. Huh? It'll be a while. They must have run out early. Well, we may be enjoying the wings at the end of the class, but that's all right. You guys are good with that, right? All right, so now we're just going to stir this up. I'm going to add my water. Who in here already owns a pressure cooker? Who owns more than one pressure cooker? Christina probably wins the prize. How many do you own, Christina? With a gift for? Does anybody own more than 4 pressure cookers? No? Yeah. I could not cook without my pressure cookers. I really couldn't. They are that wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to turn this up to high because we want to bring those liquids up to a boil. Bringing it up to a boil, once I lock this lid in place, is going to start building the pressure in the pot. The higher pressure means that it's going to cook hotter and faster, okay? What I love about this new system, the VitaQuick system, same great spring valve here that pops up when it comes up to pressure, and that's how you know that it's up to pressure. But what I love about this particular system, the Quattro set and the VitaQuick line, which is the Fissler's new line, is that it has an automatic locking system. It also has, you line this red dot up with this little post here on the handle of the pot. You turn it. As soon as you close it all the way, it locks the lid, okay? You can't open it unless you push this button to unlock it. When there's pressure in the pot, pushing this button releases the pressure, and you cannot push it all the way until all the pressure is out of the pot. The other Fissler pots that we used to carry, and if you watch some of the old videos, you'll see them, they had a blue button that you slid. You had to slide it to lock it into place. I think you slid it backwards. You slid it towards you to lock it into place. Well, if you forgot, you closed that lid and you forgot to lock it, and you had it on high and the food's just boiling in there, it's going to totally start burning because it wouldn't come up to pressure because you hadn't locked the lid. If you wanted to use this just to cook with and to put a lid on it and you didn't have a glass lid, but you didn't want it to come up to pressure, you would lock it and then unlock it. And then it's just a pot with a lid sitting on it, okay? But we're going to lock it into place so that it can start coming up to pressure. And then while it does that, we are going to get our meat going. There we go. I'm going to get my ground beef out of the fridge. And let me tell you about where this recipe comes from. This recipe comes out of a new book that we have started carrying. And it's down here on the table. It's called Grain Mains. Fantastic book. We'll be actually serving, I'm going to try and feature a recipe out of there next Wednesday in my soup class. It's a Greek egg and lemon soup that is so good. That has kale in it, and you make these dumplings out of corn, and they are so good. My daughter absolutely loved it. There's no milk or butter in it at all, but it has such a creamy texture to it, and the corn dumplings, they are good. They are really good. Very excited about that book. The whole premise behind the book, the two guys that wrote it, they had some health problems and realized that grains needed to be the main dish on our plate, not just the side dish anymore. And so that's what the whole recipe is: main dishes that have grains in every single dish. So it's really, really cool. And I have dust or flour all over my nose. But it's just really, really good. And so this lentil sloppy joe comes out of that recipe. And what's really cool, and what mom, when mom first found it, what she loved about it was that it makes a lot of sloppy joe mix with only using a pound of ground beef. That's it. And the rest of it is the lentils and the onions and the peppers and the carrots. All right, that's our bread. Let me see how we're doing over here. All right, so look at our slider buns. Can y'all see how big they are? All right, they're going they're going in this oven over here. I'm going to bake those for 12 minutes. Let me see how because the black rye bread loaves, because of that rye flour, it is not going to rise as quickly, and it's not going to be as light and fluffy as your basic dough with all hard wheat is, only because rye does not have a whole lot of gluten. It's a much higher moisture, but you can see they definitely have gotten bigger. I'm going to leave those in for a little bit longer, and then we'll bake these. Okay? 400. I'm doing the rolls at 400. All right, let's get our ground beef going. And you can see, you guys might not be able to tell, but my pressure is already coming up. It's come up to the first white ring. Typically, you pressure cook everything at the second ring. That's where you bring the pressure up to. And then once you bring the pressure up, then you reduce the heat temperature just so that it maintains the pressure, which typically, like this induction burner, goes from 1 to 9, 1 being low, 9 being high. Typically, I can turn this down to 2 or 3 to maintain the pressure. And then and it's all the way, it's up to the second ring. And so now I'm just going to set my timer for 10 minutes. What's great about these induction burners is I can set the timer on here, and when the timer is up, it turns itself off. And that's really nice. All right, let's get our ground beef in. Now don't forget, I told you I'm doubling this recipe just so that we have plenty. Do y'all know about Mom's Everything Chocolate class coming up? I will just tell you right now, that is going to be a yummy class. She has been testing recipes this week, and I tested a recipe yesterday. Braised short ribs with a espresso chocolate sauce that goes over the braised short ribs. They were so good. I told my husband about it last night. He goes, that just sounds weird. It wasn't. It was so good. Of course, I don't know any lady that would say that you couldn't put chocolate on anything and be just fine. But it's very good. We're going to be having some paninis, grilled paninis. Let's see, what else did she make? She made toffee covered in chocolate. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. But there's going to be something for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that all incorporate chocolate. So, what's great is I believe most of the chocolate that she was using were our little Enjoy Life chocolate chips, the mini chocolate chips. Those work great. If you have a recipe that calls for dark chocolate or semi-sweet chocolate, those Enjoy Life chocolate chips are wonderful. And they are gluten-free, they are nut-free, dairy-free. My daughter can have those. They're fantastic chocolate chips. My boys are on a chocolate chip muffin kick right now. I'm basically having to make a batch of chocolate chip muffins every other day. And I'm doing them in mini muffins. So I'm getting 48 mini muffins, and they are consuming every one of them every other day. Yes. Yes. So 3 times this week you've made them? 3 times, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Even, and oh, you should have seen the morning that my husband took the last of them to the fire station and the boys woke up and realized that Dad had stolen the rest of the muffins. Oh yeah. Major mutiny. Was that in my bread making class? I don't remember when we talked about that. Yeah. Maybe the I bet it was the getting started class. It was the getting started class. I talked about it. It's just it's the basic muffin recipe in the cookbook. I like to use, whenever I add chocolate and things like that, I do use all hard white wheat, except I had been using the Ezekiel mix. That's why I told y'all about it. The Ezekiel mixture, grains and beans, I don't ever make the fasting bread recipe. My kids don't care for it, but I use that grain mixture for my pancakes, my waffles, my muffins, my tortillas. I'll use it for all kinds of stuff. And so I had gotten really in the habit of using the Ezekiel mixture, grains and beans, flour, for my muffin recipe. So it's just the basic muffin recipe with the Ezekiel mix, flour, and then the mini chocolate chips. And that's it. You can add a little vanilla to it if you want to, but I don't. The muffins don't have yeast. The muffins are baking powder, baking soda, and salt. The basic muffin recipe in the cookbook. Uh-huh. The entire package makes like 9 cups of flour. So actually what I do is I bought one of the empty 1-gallon pails that we sell. It will hold somewhere between 3 and 4 of the packages of Ezekiel mix. I just go home and I dump them because I don't ever make that fasting bread recipe. The fasting bread recipe would use the entire bag. You would grind the whole thing and make the fasting bread recipe. But I don't ever do that. So I just go home, I dump all of them into my little 1-gallon pail, and then I just give it a good stir. And when I need, let's just say, okay, the pancake recipe is 3 to 4 cups of flour, I will scoop out about 2.5 to 3 cups of the grain mixture, and that grinds into about 4 cups of flour. Or if I need my 2.25 cups of flour for the basic muffin recipe, that's 1.5 cups of grain that I grind. So I just scoop 1.5 cups out of my Ezekiel mix bucket, and that's what I do. When I make the Ezekiel bread, I don't. The fasting bread recipe, you would not want to add more yeast to it because it already rises pretty quickly, and because of it being a batter bread, if it overflows your pan, that's just a mess. I'm going to turn this. How much? The mini chocolate chips, I add 1 cup to the muffin recipe. The Enjoy Life chocolate chips, it's the chocolate chips that we carry here. They're little and they're mini chocolate chips, which make my boys like the mini muffins. That's what they like. They don't like the big size muffins. They like the mini muffins. And so that's why they love the mini chocolate chips in it. What's great also about using that Ezekiel mixture is, anytime you combine grains and beans together, you're making a complete protein. So that is a complete protein muffin with chocolate. I don't know anybody who would complain about that at all. And I love it because that's what I do for my mid-morning snack. As I would walk out the door, I'd throw 2 or 3 little muffins in a baggie, and I bring them here to work. And if I get hungry about 10:30, because I eat breakfast really early, I get up and I work out before I come to work and before I get my kids off to school. And so by 10 o'clock, I'm starving. And so that is just the right amount of food. So you've got your good complex carbohydrates and your complete protein, and it's perfect. Okay, my ground beef is done. Okay, so we're going to drain off our fat here. I have a colander in the sink, just so y'all know. I'm not dumping your food down the sink, I promise. I have a colander in here. I know y'all all got really worried. Why is she dumping our food down the sink? And then Maggie, if you'll go rinse this out and put it back in the sink for me, I'm going to need it for the cabbage next. Thank you. I'm just going to leave it right there. All right. All right, now, you guys, like I said, this is the first time I'm making this for myself. I watched Mom do it. All right, so now we're going to add the Worcestershire and the ketchup. Okay, I can do that. Where did I put it? There it is. Mom always has trouble with this word too, Worcestershire. These are our little mini angled measuring cups, perfect for anything under 4 tablespoons or 4 tablespoons or less. Don't forget I'm doubling this, so. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 tablespoons for the one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do y'all like that? My kids are always like, why don't you measure anything? I'm like, I just did. It's my special kind of measuring. Now, the recipe calls for you serving this with, pickles or relish or cheese, or whatever you want to. We're not going to do any of that today because I really want you to be able to taste just how good the sloppy joe, the lentil sloppy joes taste all by themselves. And this is almost done. Now, let me tell you, there's a few ways that you can release the pressure on a pressure cooker. Natural release method would be just that. You're setting it off the heat. You're letting it naturally come down all by itself, okay? Then there is the quick release method, which is standing here and pushing the button to release all the pressure. Do you also notice the way they've designed these handles that the steam goes away from the pot and away from you? There's also a really cool system, though, built into the handle. Our timer's up here. It cools down the steam as it comes out. So you can put your hand right here and it's not going to burn you, which is really nice. Okay, so that's the quick release method. Then there is the cold water release method. I use the cold water release method anytime I want to stop the cooking, which I do a lot with when I do green beans or vegetables that I want to stop the cooking right away. Then I use the cold water release method. Will you come check the rolls in the oven? They look done to me. So you're just going to run the cold water over the edge of the pot, and that's going to bring the pressure down very, very quickly. And then you just want to get that lid open so that it's not continuing to cook in there. A few more minutes. Which is faster? Usually the cold water release method is faster than even just pushing the button. It's almost down, actually. And you see, I can't get it open as long as there's pressure in there. So they're very, very safe. I believe they've taken these up to 200 pounds of pressure, and they did not explode. They have so many safety releases. And that second line, you're cooking, I believe it's either 12 or 15 pounds of pressure is what you're cooking at. And they've taken them up to 200. Okay? All right. Now we're just going to pour that in. I don't think that we're going to need to add any extra water to this. It says that you might need to, depending on how much liquid the lentils soak up, but I don't think we need to at all. So now we're just going to let this cook for 8 to 10 minutes so that this liquid can kind of reduce a little bit. Okay. And while that does that, our rolls will be done in just a few minutes. And then once the sloppy joes are ready, then the girls will slice those rolls and serve that to you. But the next recipe that we're going to do, they're actually going to serve with the sloppy joes. If you will turn to the Reuben salad recipe. And you know what I just realized? This lentil sloppy joe did not come out of the Grain Main's book. I thought that it did, but Mom found it in she found it in a magazine actually. So I'm sorry that I misspoke. That recipe is not in that cookbook. It could be. Maybe we should send it to them. There we go. I want to show y'all see the rolls. Are they not in the camera? Are they now? Can you see them now? Back. The camera's more on this, obviously. But do you see them? Are those perfect little slider buns? I'm going to put this over here. Hamburgers. If you want to